So, pnawn da, I'm Manon Davis. I'm the SIA for Primary Numeracy, and my colleague here as well is Vicky Lees, who is the Primary Literacy Advisor for GWE. This is our joint Termly Literacy and Numeracy Leaders Network meeting for the spring term, and it's lovely to see old friends coming back as well as some new faces. You're all very welcome. We haven't seen you for a while in one of these networks, and that is for obvious reasons, but we have been here beavering away doing other things to hopefully support you in school as it is at the moment. So in this session, we will share some things with you that we think are going to be the most helpful to you in your roles as literacy and numeracy leaders, trying to still lead those areas within your school, but in this new way of working. We have sometimes had joint and sometimes separate numeracy and literacy sessions for you, but this term we thought that the messages from both of us are the same, and so to have you all here is much more relevant. So just a quick overview of the agenda for this afternoon's meeting. Firstly, we have a presentation here from Ysgol Broughton in Flintshire, who have generously agreed to share their teaching experiences of progressing and developing literacy and numeracy skills through distance learning. We then have Hywel Roberts, our colleague from GWE. He's the digital learning advisor who will be sharing online tools and training to aid distance learning. We'll also have a quick literacy and numeracy update, and at the end, feel free to ask any questions if you want to discuss anything, any feedback. So firstly, I'd like to introduce Bethan Hughes and Marcus Davis, both Key Stage 2 teachers at Ysgol Broughton in Flintshire. They're going to share with us their experiences of progressing and developing literacy and numeracy skills through their distance learning. So we'll just switch over the screens now so that they can start with their presentation. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you, Bethan and Marcus.
Diolch, I'll just share my screen, bear with me a second. Can you see that okay? Is that?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Bethan.
Perfect. No problem.
Okay, so pnawn da, we've been asked to come along today just to share some things that we've been doing in Broughton Primary with you. Like I say, we are at the start of our journey with this as well, but we have taken some steps forward with delivering some live lessons for the children. I'm currently teaching in Year 4 and Bethan is in Year 6. Yeah. So we're going to try and give the maths and numeracy from the year 4 perspective and the language and literacy from the Year 6 perspective.
Fab. Has that changed for you? Great. We just thought it'd be useful to give you some context and some information about how we've moved to our current approach. So in the last lockdown, we used Google Classroom, which I'm sure lots of you use, to set a maths, language and topic task each day. But there was definitely more of a wellbeing focus in the previous lockdown. We communicated with parents through Seesaw, but that was mainly just to check in and see how the children were coping and how they were feeling. Tasks were often quite sort of standalone because we didn't know when we'd come back. So it was very much things that we didn't want to interfere with what we wanted to do in school or didn't want to, you know, for other children to miss out on. Quite often themed in terms of well-being. But we did find that as the time went on, engagement dropped drastically, really. That could be anything. I think the weather was better, so children were outside more. I think that lots of parents were just checking on well-being like we were, but there were lots of sort of declines in engagement across the classroom. So we knew sort of then that if this happened again, we needed something in place to support progression and to support curriculum coverage, but also to promote engagement. So when we found out about this recent lockdown, we looked at doing pre-recorded sessions. And I think staff were quite wary about that to start with being on camera and being filmed, but that was just for the first 3 days before we had a chance to discuss what we would do moving forward. At the moment, we're doing a maths language topic task on the classroom each day. We do work that's linked to the topic that we would be studying in class, so that's very different to last time. We're now trying to cover what we would have covered anyway in the classroom. We still communicate with parents through Seesaw, but we've now moved away from the pre-recorded sessions to 2 live sessions per day on a Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. We then do drop-in sessions, 2 on a Thursday, 1 morning, 1 afternoon, for children who need support with their work. And this time we're focusing on skill progression as well as well-being, but we're really looking at that coverage now and making sure that the children are learning from home. We're going to give you a little bit more information of how we got to the lives, because there were a lot of concerns from staff when we found out that we were going live.
Okay, so our original concerns, I suppose, for our pre-recorded videos and our live lessons, there was more that you can see on your screen at the moment, really. There was lots of people who were looking like the picture in the middle of the slide as well. The main ones really were who will be watching our live lessons and our pre-recorded videos, who's actually going to be for, how can we make these work. That included a lot of questions for us, making them accessible for all the children. Going back to the other side, would there be judgment and accountability put on us? And as well, that would be shared live for parents and our peer teachers as well. Personally, that made me question my ability straight away and thinking, oh, if I'm live on a session, will my teaching be questioned? Will every mistake and interruption be picked up on? Like in the classroom, you can kind of mask over certain mistakes and interruptions, where I felt like if that was live, then you wouldn't have the adaptability to change these things, as well as if children had misconceptions, being able to adapt to address these in the moment. We felt like that was something that was going to be quite hard to do during live lessons. Like I said as well, how could we cater for all children's needs? If we think about all the types of differentiation that happen within your classroom, we felt like this was going to be quite hard to put over through a video call, or through children watching a video, or through watching a Google Slides or a presentation, which was something that we had to be very aware of when choosing the technology and the resources that we have chosen. Again, we might not be getting this entirely right yet, as we are only in week 3 of doing this. So that leaded on to as well questions about where we should pitch these lessons. We have found that we're going slightly lower, I'd say, to what we would normally do, excuse me, in the classroom. As well, for me, the main thing for teaching that I love is the interaction with the children and the constant assessment and feedback that you are doing every second of every lesson. So this was very important that we tried to include this into our lessons as well. So how to include questioning, the instant feedback, open discussion between children as well. I think we need to mention that we are delivering these live lessons across our year groups, which there's 3 classes per year group. So there was the possibility of, for myself in year 4, that we'd have up to 76 children on a live lesson, but that isn't the case, obviously, because not all children are accessing each live lesson. So open discussion is something that we're working on, and we're going to talk about how we are addressing some of these things as well. Again, though, the main thing was that we wanted to try and keep the progression and our expectations of children's learning at, well, the highest that they could be, and that making sure that outcomes and standards stayed the same, and that they weren't dropping at all. And then the last one in the bottom right hand corner there, where that we felt like staff with their pre-recorded videos were trying to make everything perfect. They were going back to this, they didn't want to make any mistakes or have any interruptions or things going wrong, whether that be through technology or through people interrupting on the live lessons. So if you see that linked up to the top there, which we've tried to take on a stance with making sure that we're not trying to make everything perfect, so it's unneeded perfection, knowing that things will go wrong and that we can laugh them off even though we're on a live lesson, taking a bit of self-pressure off, which I definitely felt from the first week of us doing our live lessons.
Yeah, we definitely had lots of worries, and we don't want to pretend that we were perfect and we were all sort of on board straight away, because lots of us were really scared. I think a big focus then became our safeguarding, and we often find that with things like this, we obviously prioritise the learner's safeguarding first, but we really wanted to be considered as staff as well and how we were being looked after. So to start implementing more for our protection, really, we looked at the blended learning policy together. So it was created by senior management, and then they then brought it to us and asked what feedback we had about that. For example, one of the things that we said was we'd really like the expectations to be shared with parents so that they were aware of, you know, what their role was really when we were teaching. So that was shared and that was included. We teach now in our year group teams. It was considered that we would all teach our own classes live, and I know it's not possible for every school. We're very fortunate that we have teams of teachers. So in year 6, I have 2 other year 6 teachers who sit in on my live sessions and I sit in on theirs. So we share the workload, but we also have the support of the team teacher skills, and we feel like we have that sort of safeguarding in place for us. We're not required to have our camera on whilst we teach. I think most of us do. That's more because we like the interaction with the children. It feels more like it would if we were in a classroom, but we don't need to. And on a Thursday and Friday, we mentioned workload and how concerned we were with the level of sort of admin that we've got at the moment compared to what we usually do. So we've been given a Thursday for drop-ins and Fridays for planning, preparation and assessment. Just at the bottom of the screen there is the expectations that we shared with the parents and with the children at the start of every live session. So we do it every time. It's quite repetitive. And we just mentioned all of this sort of simple list of things that were mainly our worries that we can put across that they can sort of read and understand. So the bottom one, not taking photos or recordings, that was again for our safeguarding. I don't know if this video will work through this. I don't think it will, but it's fine. It's an Adobe Spark that we sent to the parents through Seesaw and on School Gateway. And this is a live document. We can work on this pretty, like whenever something changes, we can add it. And it just has how-to videos on it. It has our timetables on it. Any sort of general questions that we were getting lots of, we'd put on there for parents to access if they had any questions before coming to us. So that's how we communicated that with parents.
Okay, so like I mentioned before, I'm going to talk to you from the lower Key Stage 2 perspective. I think there might be a couple of things on here that we've already covered. So looking specifically at developing maths and then leading through to numeracy, on the left-hand side, just to make you aware, there's a range of things there that I've tried, and there's a couple of things there that the teacher that works alongside me that we've tried to incorporate into our live sessions so far, and also with our pre-recorded videos or lessons, if you like. So the first thing there, introducing modelling and explaining of concepts and tasks. This was something that we felt like we weren't quite sure how to do this to start with, so we've used a range of things, as I've just mentioned. This was taking up quite a lot of time to plan and to prepare for these lessons, but what we found is that we were actually doing too much to start with. I think it was for that comfort of make sure that we've all got enough, but in actual fact, once we've started the sessions, just that teacher instinct has taken over. We've also been using supporting videos that have either been teacher made or they've been like online videos that we've edited and chopped and changed ourselves. We use these as well as having discussion and input and questions from the children and from the other teachers on the live sessions that Bethan's just mentioned. We do this by using the hand up function for questioning, and there's also like the chat section which we ask for responses through, or we specifically question children and they can put their hand up and give their response or their idea. Other things that I've used for gathering ideas is by using Padlet and then putting the link into the chat for children to give their prior learning or to give keywords or to give a multitude of responses to a problem or a question. What we found is by doing this is we're able to directly address misconceptions from the previous day. This might be through a simple video, or it might be live on the session, rather than just giving a task the next day with no explanation. It has been much better for us, and I think even though we had all of them multitude of worries to start with, I think majority of staff actually prefer doing these live sessions now, because it is that little bit of teaching that has been taken away from us. As well then, learners leave a call to go and complete the activity that we've explained or modelled. and we stay on that live session for another 15 minutes for the children to come back onto. It's Google Meet that we use for our live sessions, and they are able then to come and ask any questions. We do as well, obviously, get parents coming back with the children and asking us to go through things, but we found that that's actually been very, very friendly. We haven't actually had any problems from that yet. I will touch wood there, because I think that was my main worry to start with, was am I going to go into this live session and am I actually going to be teaching the parents how to do things at times and maybe not the children. So some of the key things that we've changed going forward are to make sure we've got straightforward examples. We can't make it overcomplicated because the children are trying to use different formats and different technology. Our explanations and instructions need to be very clear, and they also then need to be clear with the task that's going on to Google Classroom after that, as that's what we use. Clear modelling of the concept and the activity or task for completion. So we found with a couple of our live sessions, we'd explained how to do something, told the children where to go to find their task. We might not have gone through the task as clearly or as thoroughly as what we might do in the classroom, where you can just address them questions straight away. So we found we have really got to go through the task a lot more. The resources then are available on Google Classroom, as I mentioned, and written instructions are provided, as well as a support video or a presentation, the majority of the time you've used in your lesson or your session anyway, for the children who haven't been able to access the live session. And then, yeah, the math sessions are beginning to link to topics. So like I said, we've only been doing this for a couple of weeks. When I put that in there, we hadn't actually really hit any, what I'd call specific numeracy with it, but since then we have done, as we've been looking at Broughton Bootcamp and other PE based sessions. So here we have got, I've just tried to give you a brief run through of a session that I have delivered. Vicky actually sat in on this as well. So at the start here, I asked children to just give me some keywords on Padlet, which is here, which the link was in the chat. So I got their prior learning from the previous, week's learning. We then used some presentations of what we call simmering skills here. We follow a program of study for our maths, which I'll come on to a little bit later. So this was an interactive PowerPoint which showed the children using the base 10 equipment, which we use in school as well, which I found particularly tricky as the children use lots and lots of the practical equipment. So that's been something that I've had to think about, how am I going to deliver that over my live session, which they've taken to quite well, and at home they've been using pasta and coins and all sorts of things as their equipment. So we went through this, the concept of long division, and then we did one together with them inputting like you would in class, I suppose, but it's just that handling of asking children to unmute their microphones. And then we went to their work on Google Classroom, which that's a screenshot there for them to see their actual work, and we explain to them how they need to do it. And then they go away and have a go, and we stay on for 15 minutes for any questions or answers. That's a whirlwind tour of a session anyway. So moving on. What we then found was some of the concepts that we were trying to cover in them first 2 weeks of delivering live sessions were getting quite getting more difficult as we went along. We were trying to progress the children. We found that this was then becoming a little bit more difficult for learners and parents to understand what we were asking them to do, really. So we took that feedback on board, and this picture here, or screenshot, is of a task that we then set them, because we were thinking that if this was in our classroom now, we'd be thinking about differentiating the task with them all accessing the same concept, but maybe in different ways, or at slightly varied levels. So we gave them a choice, which actually worked really well. I thought we might have a range of responses with this, and our hires maybe taking the easiest option and vice versa. But what actually happened was all the children wanted to push themselves. Of course, there's going to be some parents there as well pushing them along, which is encouraged. But what we did do is I pre-recorded myself just doing a step-by-step of a question for them, which worked really well. And then going to parental engagement here, I don't know if you can see that. And of course, we had a few comments the other way as well, but this one really stood out, which was that Jacob had been struggling a lot with the long division method. We then addressed it by putting the differentiated task on and a step-by-step video of the method. And then the next day we could see that Jacob actually then even said it was fun, which was good to hear. So things are working, and they're the things that are making it worthwhile along the way, like you would see in the classroom. So that was good. So what we then went to after we looked at the long division method was thinking about which area or concept or skill to move on to. Like I said before, we follow a program of study, so normally it's what would come next in that program. We've decided to pull away from that slightly and dip into and choose which areas are going to be more accessible, visual and friendly for parents through our online platforms. So we went to bar graphs, and as well I thought data we can address numeracy, and it can be put into all other areas of our topic then, as well as that's what we were looking to go forward with next. So again, here's just some things I've used an app called Explain Everything to put my lesson as a video, but also accessing that during the live session. Please ignore my scruffy bar graph filling in with colours there, but that's what it's come to really. And if the children do that, then we just need to understand that they're trying to access things on different devices, so that might not always be up to the presentation scratch that we require in the classroom. So you can see that goes round there as our session. Again, because we were slightly worried from some of the feedback we got from the long division, we tried to use something that was more accessible for parents to maybe understand as well, or some parents. So I don't know if you can see some of the comments there, but Noah's dad had then asked him to go out and count how many cars were in the street whilst they were on a walk, and then they produced the bar graph together. I know it's not 100% correct, but for me that was really really nice that dad and lad had kind of gone out and then had a go at the maths together on something completely different to what we'd been looking at as our actual session. Okay, so how we've taken this forward with numeracy, like I mentioned before, another teacher who is our take on Joe Wicks, if you like, has started doing his a Broughton boot camp, which is the children come online and they access a boot camp. So we've thought we tried to move this forward with our numeracy. So we gave the children a task of completing exercises, how many they could complete in a certain time frame, and then they had to independently create a bar graph with their own results. You can see here that I made some little videos of me doing it, and we went through and modelled how to complete that themselves. But then the actual bar graph that they had to use to represent their results after they had completed their PE session, they had to do independently. So that's where we've gone to with our numeracy at the moment. And then to take that further forward, we are going to try and embed these skills and concepts further. We've noticed at the moment it's going to be quite easy to do that through a PE and wellbeing focus as well, like Bethan mentioned before. As we've said, we might then get children to complete the boot camp, go onto Padlet and put in how many times they have been exercising a week, and then children will then create a bar graph to represent the exercises or the days that children have exercised from Broughton in a week. As well, our topic is volcanoes and mountains, so we're going to move forward with looking at the heights of volcano and progressing that to go into rounding and more different scales of bar graphs. I think that's where we're up to at the moment.
Yeah, I think we're trying to keep it as similar to what we've been covering in the classroom as we can, really, but obviously we have to make it more simplistic in how we present it. I'm obviously coming from a year 6 perspective, Our sessions are very similar to the 3-4. We still have 2 slightly different times of day, but ours are 40-minute sessions. Our input is around 10 to 15 minutes. And in that time, I use a tool called Microsoft Whiteboard, which I'm sure many of you have seen before, to sort of present my screen. And then some teachers use Explain Everything to present. The children then sort of interact with us. We use the chat function to talk to them, and then they go away to complete a task, but we stay on the call to take any questions that they might have. A big issue that we've had actually is getting the children to speak in year 6. I think in the lower years they're really keen to speak and they all want to speak, but in year 6 they'd much prefer to type in the chat like they would, I suppose, on their phones. So that's how we found it's the best way to do it. We keep lesson structures really simple, but we've tried to stick to the fundamentals of what we'd be covering in the classroom, just to make sure that we're still setting the high level of challenge, but we present it in a more simplistic style. I'll show you an example of a session that I've done in my next slide. Because our main focus is accessibility, quite often I personally have found that it's my lower ability pupils that won't turn up to the session or wouldn't access the classroom. Whereas if I can pitch it in a way where they then feel like they can join in as well, they're more likely to come back the next day, and that's worked so far in terms of engagement. We keep the lesson resources on the classroom, and we put written instructions on for those that can't attend the live sessions. I think that's obviously important to say that we still do that. And then we link our topic sessions. So like I said before, we do 1 maths, 1 language, 1 topic a day. So we link our topic sessions to whatever skill we've embedded in the language and the maths. So that's where we get our literacy and our numeracy in. So for example, our topic this term in year 5 and 6 is Wales and Welsh rugby. So we've been looking at different places in Cardiff and descriptive writing. We've looked at area and perimeter in maths previously, so they've gone on to create a food stand and find the area and perimeter of that, and then they've used a spreadsheet to calculate costs. We've looked at tessellation, so they've then gone and created pieces of art using shapes that tessellate. Science and technology, we were looking at menus, presentation, appealing to the public, and they were looking at healthy eating. So we managed to then get them to create a menu for a healthy restaurant that linked to the Welsh rugby stadium. So just some examples of things that we've done. This is an example of a session that I've done just to show really how simple it is. I use Microsoft Whiteboard, so it would zoom in on certain aspects and I just drag the screen around while I'm presenting. So this was a descriptive writing session. I've tried to use all the tools that I would use in the classroom. So it's all those links to prior learning that you can reflect on, but you can't necessarily do as easily if you're not live. So here we use writing power. So we looked at triple scoop words, like your really wow words, sort of, I suppose, to describe this image. And then your lower ability can still pitch in. If you know that you see a really higher level vocabulary, you can praise it. You can sort of show that's what you're looking for more easily. I ask really simple questions like, can you remember the 5 senses? And then you get all of the children engaged straight away, which then leads you into using your resources like you would in the classroom. So that's a photograph of, at the bottom is a photograph of something from my working wall that the children created that they know to go to in class to make their writing better. So if I'm reminding them of these things and these tools, they're hopefully going to use them, and they're focusing more on sort of standards of work as opposed to just getting something done quickly and handing it in so they can have the rest of their day. I gave them a waggle. So there's lots of opportunities for sort of all your focuses in literacy really, but I'm modelling all the time. So that's what the live sessions have allowed me to do is yes, you pitch it in a simple way, but I'm managing to challenge through what I'm saying verbally and what I'm sharing with them and how I model it really. So they picked out the different writing techniques in that piece. We could refer to our Alan Peat structures like an outside-inside sentence, and they picked up on things like that, and they sort of remember what to include, whereas before we're just getting things that were quite rushed, if I'm honest, and even our more able pupils, they weren't putting the effort in. So yes, we're seeing progression, but we're also seeing high levels of engagement and effort, which you need for that progression to take place. So from my point of view, this is how I think it has supported progression of these skills. Like I've said, higher levels of engagement. I think there's only 2 members of my class at the minute that I don't, hear from regularly, and that's drastic improvement compared to the last lockdown. I'm getting much more engagement with year 6 in particular, who mums were messaging me saying they couldn't get their children out of bed in the morning. They now have a time to sort of come online and be there, and so they're being supported then, and they're making that progress, and they're more motivated. I think even in year 6, when they pretend that they're not interested in us or their teachers, they still really like seeing us, and they want our praise, and they want to feel like they've done well, and even that is pushing them along. I put interactions with the children allow them to take ownership, so they're a part of their own learning again, rather than just a task that I've set on the classroom that they go away and complete and then hand in. They work on it with me. We build a success criteria together, and then they can go away with their own sort of high expectations and my high expectations. So the challenge is still there. Able to build on previous sessions, Marcus mentioned that, and that is so important. I think that we're constantly sort of on that path or that journey of learning, rather than it being these standalone sessions that don't really have a point, and children know they don't really have a point, I think. So if we've told them, you know, we're doing this topic or we're learning about this and everything links to it, their learning has a purpose again. I've said these to you already, but high expectations, we're doing that, setting them verbally and giving the work a purpose through links to a topic. I've picked 2 pieces of work to show you. They come from the same child, who is not a more able pupil by any means, but works really hard. He's a child that is there every day. He's always working. They were both descriptive writing tasks. This was to describe a character from a book, and this was before we went live, but I did do a pre-recorded video, and I still found that he wasn't as engaged, or wasn't given the as much as he could, I suppose. So he just listed words here, even though I did ask for a paragraph. And then this was a live session that I did, and this was the piece that I got. And it's not perfect, but even there you can see the jump in effort, and you can see that he's really trying to use the resources that I've given him. And then next time he does a piece like that, I think you definitely see progress, because he would build on feedback, and I can then refer to that. And we'd use the drop-ins for that as well, to say, oh, I loved what you did yesterday, or maybe you could do this next time. And they're listening, and they're building on it, because it feels like school again, and it feels like they're learning again, and they're with us again. So I think that's really supported progression here. Just quickly, alternative provision, what we've got in place for children that aren't in school.
Yeah, I think that was definitely a good way to put it, that it does feel like they're with us again, and that we are kind of teaching. So yeah, alternative provision. So for the children that don't always have the access to the technology at home, we are providing work packs for parents to be collected from school, which I'm sure lots of you are as well. What are some of the other ones?
We've got devices that we're loaning out again, yeah. All things that you'll be doing, pre-recorded videos for some sessions if appropriate.
Yeah, as well as the resources and the presentations that can be accessed at any time, and even at later dates if they need to go back and look at things as well.
So yeah, I think we've got things in place for those children as well. It's not just all about the lives, but yeah, I think that's...
As well, just to add to that a little bit at the end, for a couple of children who were, because of their particular needs, who were maybe particularly anxious about being live or even accessing education from at home, didn't understand why they were having to do it at home, by opening up the live sessions and the Google Meet and the what do you call it, the ability to be able to speak to children at home. I know there's 2 children in my class in particular that didn't access anything during the last lockdown. It was just a case of getting a thumbs up each week from them, and they're on every session now because they are getting to see the teacher, is what the parents have said, and it's actually bringing their well-being up as well. So that's a plus to go along with it.
Definitely. Thank you for listening. I think I'm sure that everyone's doing amazing things. It's just nice to share from a different school's perspective.
We definitely haven't got it right.
It's not perfect yet.
But there we are.
Thank you. Diolch.
Oh, thank you so much, Bethan and Marcus. That's just absolutely lovely to hear you explain that, and to hear you explain it so honestly. Where you say this is a journey, you're learning as you go along. It's, you're not there yet. It's not perfect. It's just absolutely great. So I can't thank you enough. Does anybody want to ask Bethan and Marcus anything? You don't have to do that live or, over the microphone if you don't want to. We can happily take questions in chat. If you don't want to, or you think of questions as you go along, that session obviously is recorded. So what we'll be doing is uploading this onto the support centre, the GWER support centre, so you can see it. I was writing notes as I was going along, and I was thinking I did actually genuinely sit in one of these live lessons. It was by invite only, otherwise by no means would we expect anything like that. So it was a real privilege for the school to invite me in, and it was just so lovely to see children. That's what really struck me. It was just, I've got my 2 teenagers learning at home, and it's not quite the same. So that was just, it really struck me, and it struck me how much it felt like a normal classroom session, and all the children were smiling. It was really nice. So just some points to pick. Oh, I think there's a question coming in chat, so while I wait for that to load, obviously if it's not your school policy, oh, here we are, we have a question. Are you doing live sessions in foundation phase? Bethan or Marcus, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, they are. They tried doing 2 a day, and it was too much. And we were going to go straight to curriculum, again, too much. So they started by doing like a show and tell in small groups, and they're now bringing in like curriculum content, I suppose, slowly. But they do 1 a day now.
And I know, talking to the head teacher, Melissa Kendrick, head teacher of Broughton, what she was saying was that they were trying, with the live sessions in foundation phase, they were trying to give parents prior warning of what might be in it. You know, so if the children had to go and fetch something that was blue or find something in the house that was round, the parents had a little bit of a heads up so that they, you know, they could support the child, and it wasn't, and it didn't fall flat or cause any problems for the family. So, so thinking about things that Bethan and Marcus are picking on there, obviously, it may not be your school policy to do live sessions, and we're not suggesting that or pushing that you should be, but it was just nice to hear from Marcus and Bethan there to see how it's different, and offer their pearls of wisdom about how to lead up to it. But later on in this session today, we'll be hearing from Howell Roberts, who will be taking us through some new IT packages that can really help you to do some of this, either live or not, as you feel free. Right, so we have another question here. On a Thursday and Friday, do the children have tasks to complete from the beginning of the week while you are having your planning and assessment time? So Bethan and Marcus, can you answer that?
Yeah, so the tasks from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday will still be on our Google Classroom for them to, and as well the pre-recorded videos and the presentations we've used will be on Google Classroom for them to access. I know from Year 4 point of view, what we try and do is, so, well, from the maths and numeracy point of view as well, on a Thursday I try and give them it's slightly standalone, I suppose, but a problem-solving task to do, which is carefully chosen so it's easily accessible for the children to access on their own. Yeah, so they still have the 3 tasks, maths, not English, language, maths and topic, on Thursday and Friday as well. Like I just mentioned, then though, the topic on a Thursday would be come and join us for this one-off boot camp or activity session, and on a Friday for maths we use something which is called active maths as well, so it's getting them to move around as they're doing their maths, but they would still have tasks to do on Thursday and Friday, but they would be carefully selected, so the children would hopefully be able to do them independently. Yeah. But we would still be there on a Thursday as a drop-in for any questions, and a Friday, if they had any questions, they could type them in on Google Classroom, or parents can also always contact us through Seesaw.
Our head has been really supportive of the fact that we've got quite a lot of admin and a lot of workload by the time it comes to Friday. So on a Friday, we tend to set tasks.
Oh wow.
That's the school bell going off. That's okay, we'll just give them a second. A very long bell. Are you still with us? Are you still with us, Bethan? Or it might have been the fire alarm. Okay, she's just communicating with us in chat.
There we go, stop.
Oh, wait, here we are.
I'm really sorry. There you go, just a real school situation.
Yeah.
Our head's been really supportive and lets us do set tasks on a Friday that are minimal to no marking, so that we can catch up. But it's still sort of like times tables and things like that. Hopefully that answers your question.
That's great. Thanks, Beth. And one of the things that's really struck me from what what you and Marcus have been talking about here is your less is more. In a way, you're bringing it down to the fundamental skills, and you're focusing on those skills, keeping it simple, developing those literacy or numeracy skills, and then enhancing them and progressing them through the week. You're modeling as well, which is obviously a huge advantage and it's having an impact on the engagement as well, and the parents are getting involved and being able to put that into real context as well. So the communication with parents is obviously really, really strong. So that's a key factor. So these are great top tips, I think, that you're sharing with us, Bethan and Marcus, and we really appreciate it. That less is more, focusing really on that skill and developing that skill throughout the week, and then giving yourself a bit of a breather as well is really important so that you can keep on top of it and keep focused. But it was absolutely a genuine delight to sit through these sessions with you. One of the things I would obviously have to flag up here that to the delegates who are with us today, as leaders of literacy and numeracy, as middle leaders in your school, online safety and safeguarding of children would be something that would need to be monitored, and obviously school policies within that, as Broughton are doing themselves. So it's just one of those things I have to flag up. But definitely, thank you so much for sharing that. And one of the other interesting things you said, Marcus, was that you hadn't, well, you have just now, but up to sort of last week, you hadn't really moved on to the real true numeracy yet, because you were still working on those mathematical skills. And I know Manon would want me to stress that you can't develop those numeracy skills until the children have been taught the mathematical concepts. So you would still in that stage of starting afresh in January, building those mathematical contexts. But as of now, I believe you said that you were starting to develop the numeracy. With the engagement, the modelling and the engagement of the parents, you were obviously able to, the parents were taking that on and putting it into real life concepts of the bar chart, which I just thought was a lovely example. Not striving for perfection, just as you wouldn't in a classroom. You would accept all sorts of different levels of ability and engagement in a classroom. And I think that's really lovely that you're not pushing yourselves to be perfect, and you're not pushing the children to be perfect, but it's slowly. So yeah, if there are no more questions for them, I don't know if you're staying with us for the rest, but I will pass on now to my GWER colleague, Howell Roberts, who will be talking about some new IT programs that will be able to help you in your online teaching. So over to you, Howell.
Diolch, Vicky, thank you very much. And thank you to Marcus and Bethan as well, very informative. Lots of brilliant ideas, and if I had my camera on before, you could see me nodding all the time, agreeing and saying, yeah, makes so much sense. And like Vicky says, a lot of top tips there. So yeah, thank you very much for that. I really enjoyed it. Can Manon or Vicky please make me a presenter?
Are you able to do that, Manon?
Bear with me 2 seconds.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you. Just bear with me until I get my screen ready. Right. Hopefully you're able to see the screen now. Are you able to see that, Vicky?
Yes, I can see it. Yes, wonderful.
Brilliant, thank you. So the reason I'm here is to basically just want to make you aware of some online training courses that we've got available on the GWER Support Centre now. And the reason we've done this is because we found that if we're having webinars, it kind of forced people to try and make time to be there. And we know how busy it is in schools and everything, with everything that's going on. So we thought that if we created this online training courses where people could dip in and out when they wanted to, they're able to do that during their PPA time or staff meetings. They could even use it as inset days, or even at home or on their phones if they wanted to. They can, you know, there's no pressure to be at a certain place at a certain time. So that's the reason we did this. And the where it belongs is if you go onto the GWER website, gwergogledd.cymru, and then go up to the top here and go to GWER Support Centre. and then choose your language. Go into English for tonight. And then you've got lots of options here, but where this lives is within the digital learning section here. And there are a few things there that we developed during this period, such as webinars and how-to videos and digital learning resources. You're welcome to dip in and out of them to have a look at them. But the online training sections here, and at the moment there are the tools that are available on Hub. So the Hub tools, as you are aware, are free. And we've created online training for Google, Flipgrid, Adobe Spark, J2E, and there's Minecraft coming soon. I'm currently on my own course there, working with Hub there. So yeah, upskilling myself there. So that'll come soon. I'm not sure if it'll come in the next few weeks or in a couple of years' time, but I'm working on it. So bear with me there. So yeah, the way it works, this online training, is say if we go into Google and we click onto Google here, what we've got 3 different courses. So if I was to look at the first one here, beginner's Google Classroom, I'm just talking about this because a lot of people have kind of jumped into Google Classroom and not maybe had a look at the Google Core Apps first of all. So what we recommend is that you look at the Google Core Apps first, get your heads around Google Drive, Google Docs, Sheets and Slides, and then once you've done that, then you move on then to the beginner's Google Classroom, and then on to the intermediate after that. So I'm going to just go back now to the previous screen, and I'm going to show you Flipgrid. So in Flipgrid, there are 2 courses. There's one for beginners and one for intermediate. And I'll just click onto this now just to show you how it works. So we've built this online courses on a platform on Hub, which is playlists. So all it is, it asks you to log into your Hub, and then eventually, bear with me, it will load up a playlist that will give you the online courses. They're in English and Welsh, so you can toggle up the top here if you want to do it in Welsh. I'm going to stick with English for now. And then it just gives you a bit of contents there to tell you what's in the course. And then if I move on, tells you that you're going to where to find Flipgrid, how to set up your first grid, or a class as we call it, and how to get your pupils to join your grid, and how to set up your first topic, which is your assignment in a way. All of these take about 40 minutes. And then at the end, there's a little quiz, and we suggest that you aim to score over 75% before moving on to the next course. So I'm just going to show you quickly how it works. So what they are a series of videos that we've created. So the first video is how to log into Flipgrid through the Hub. So it takes you step by step and shows you exactly what to do. Then there's another video, how to create a group. And then after that, there's a practical task for you to complete. So the first one is to find Flipgrid on Hub and log in, and then create your first group or class. And then after you've done that, you can move on then to the next part, which is adding a co-pilot, which is an additional kind of security feature on Flipgrid, pardon me. And then how to create a topic. And then after that, again, we've got some practical tasks. So what's good about this is that you can dip in and out of this. So if you've done like the first 2 videos and then done the practical tasks, you can then do the next section some other time. And then after this, again, you can see some students' response videos, how the students respond, and then again, some practical tasks. Once you've done that, then the quiz starts. So all you need to do is press start. And then at a few questions, you put these actions in order, you just drag these down. I won't go through it now, but you get the idea. And at the end, it gives you a score. So if you've got less than 75, you go back and do it again. And then if you've got more than 75, you could happily move on to the next course. So hopefully that gives you just a quick just an idea of what's available on the Career Support Centre and on the online, the digital learning section of the site. So that's all I've got for you. Sorry, Vicky, I haven't got any more.
Don't apologise. That's absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Howell. That's so useful. And if you didn't see, I put the link to the GWER Support Centre in the chat for you so that you could open that up on another screen. But you could just access it through a simple Google search. We have a question from Bryn Cotlin. Did these courses online to upskill and found them really helpful and user friendly? Oh, that's great to know.
Brilliant. Oh,
Added Castify to my Google account, which has been invaluable for explaining to parents how to do the tasks I set to talk over PowerPoint presentations. Oh, well done. Well, thank you very much. I'm passing on thanks from Bryn Cotlin there, Howell. So if that supports what you're saying for anybody else wanting to give it a go, that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much, Howell.
Lovely. Thanks very much.
I'm going to hand over to Manon now.
Thank you, Vicky. I'm just going to share my screen with you. So have you got the agenda still on your screen, Vicky?
I can see that. Yes, I can see that.
Okay, so we'll switch over. Okay, then. So what we're going to just do now is just give you a quick literacy and numeracy update, just to make you aware of the GWER Support Centre. Howell's just opened up the GWER Support Centre there. The link is via the GWER Gogledd website. The GWER Support Centre contains all the resources that were developed by GWER over the COVID period. It's well worth taking the time to explore the website. Within the teaching and learning file, what you'll find amongst other resources, be it distance learning resources, blended learning resources, you will also find accelerated learning resources. Within the accelerated learning file, you will find 3 sets of resources. Just to make you aware, on the GWER Support Centre, there is a webinar section, and there is a primary accelerating learning webinar on the Support Centre, which explains the 3 parts to the accelerated learning resources. If you haven't accessed or watched the webinar, please have a look at it. It will explain the background behind the 3 different work streams that we've developed over the COVID period. And also, if you have any questions, please contact myself or Vicky, always here to help. Also, just to make you aware that we have produced some resources to support parents with supporting their children at home. So what we've done is we've designed a few quick Adobe Spark video clips, one based on numeracy and a couple based on literacy skills, on how parents can support literacy and numeracy at home. A quick video clip, take a few minutes, that's it, to watch, but hopefully they will be of use to you to share with your schools. Also, as part of the teaching and learning strategies in the accelerated learning package, we have the SAFMEDS numeracy programme. There is a web page dedicated to SAFMED, which includes full training and all resources to implement the programme. If you're interested in using SAFMEDS to support learners at home or in school, or a combination of both, our research officer in GWER, Dr. Katie Owen, is available via monthly drop-ins and email to support implementation or to provide any kind of support should you need it. This will come at no extra cost to the school. All the information regarding these drop-in sessions are available on the GWER bulletin. Of course, again, if you have any questions, please contact myself, Vicky or Katie directly.